mastectomy and did, that is removal of both breasts, and did...
But that was the gene. There was no cancer at that time.
There was no cancer. It was preventive because that's one of the risk factors. If you find out the gene is positive in a particular person, there's a likelihood that the person will come down with breast cancer. So she wanted to avoid that. So, you know, one of the main risk factors is that being a woman and having breasts,
of course,
exactly.
Predisposing
so it's a predisposition, yes, more. So that's why she went all ahead and removed it so that at least there'll be no breast, there'll be no cancer.
But is that the implication? No breast, no breast cancer.
No breast, no breast cancer. We all have breasts, you know. Even men have breast cancer because they have breasts at least to a smaller degree.
Okay, now it's hard enough to accept in this country that cancer actually happens. People still find it hard to believe. But when I heard about cancer in children, why does that happen?
Everybody and anybody can come down with cancer. What is cancer? It's the abnormal growth, right, of any part of the body, the tissues, the organs, the vessels, and the abnormal growth occurs because usually when you're born, there's a stimulus that as a particular organ or tissue is growing, that stimulus, right, in your body will say, oh, when it gets to a stage, stop growing.
A bit faster. Okay.
No, stop
growing.
That's the normal thing.
That's the normal
thing. But in this, there's an abnormality. When you have cancer, there's a default. There's an abnormality. And you find out that even when the stimulus says, stop, it keeps growing. So as it grows, it gets big, out of proportion, and that becomes a mass, and that is what, you know, comes finally to be called, you know, a cancer. Because as it's growing, as it's getting bigger, there could be abnormality in the cell. You know, the cells are producing a lot.
So the cell isn't exactly like the normal cells.
It's not like the normal cells.
So it's not just a matter of growing beyond the boundary.
Abnormal.
Okay.
Yes. So once it's abnormal, and that's why we say, if you find any mass or any lump anywhere in the body, the best thing is go to the hospital.
Okay, let me pause you there and come to Matilda. Your son had cancer. Let me just say had for now, and then we'll find out what it is like later. But how did you notice? What strange thing did you see?
Okay, first of all, he was having very high fever, you know, and then he was throwing up. So we had to rush him to the hospital. That was the first time he was falling sick, as a matter of fact. That was a few months to his second birthday. Now, by the time we got to the hospital, he started complaining that he was feeling pains on his stomach. So lo and behold, there was a lump there, slightly swollen, you understand? So we drew the attention of the doctors to it, and they ran normal scan, x-ray and all of that, and they said it was just a mass obstructing the intestine, you know, so that was where the whole journey started from. And by the time we had gone through several treatments, in fact, okay, they said it was a mass obstructing the intestine, and they said he was going to have a surgery to take out the mass. But by the time we got referred to do the surgery, the surgeon checked him and said, no, it wasn't an intestinal obstruction. So that was in his diagnosis. So, okay, the surgeon now says, I'm going to write that they check him and treat him for sepsis. So he started treating sepsis.
Okay, hold on there, doctor. Is it wrong to remove any mass, you see? I mean, an abnormal mass. If you remove it, wouldn't that take care of the problem, even if you don't have a diagnosis?
Once you see, the rule is once you see any mass anywhere, it's best to remove it. And then when you remove it, you send it to the laboratory for investigation. That is where it will be tested, and it's either they tell you it's cancerous, which we say malignant, or it's benign, that is, it's not malignant. Okay. So that will now, you know, determine exactly what the mass is there for.
Okay, that brings me to my next question. Why, you know, we hear so many stories about misdiagnosis. Why are we having that, and isn't it possible to get it right the first time?
That's a dicey question. The truth about it is that what I will tell people is that, yes, we hear a lot of misdiagnosis, but the truth is that where exactly are they going to?
Okay.
That's number one. In the teaching hospitals, and I believe in reputable private hospitals, right? At least they should have specialists who should be able to make the right diagnosis. But one thing somewhere along the line I have discovered also is that at times I guess some doctors might be a bit sentimental in terms of not wanting to prescribe or tell the patients to do investigations that are very expensive.
Okay.
It's like now when it comes to radiological investigations, there are some investigations that, you know, we start with either you have a plain X-ray, you have an ultrasound scan, you have a CT scan, and then you have MRI. The truth about it is that some are lower, like the plain X-rays.
They're not as
and
sensitive.
as not as sensitive as the CT and the MRI. So when you do those investigations and you're not seeing anything, it's better. But because patients pay out of pocket and it's very expensive, a CT is over 40,000,
Okay.
an MRI is over 70,000. So some at times feel